Guys, thanks for being here. We do have a set of questions. Paul, do you want me to start with some questions or you got this?
Sure. No. Have at it.
All right, perfect. Louie, thanks for being on, man. Appreciate you. First off, let's ask the most important question that we keep on getting, and that's, as realtors, real estate agents, do we qualify for the SBA grant, and which one is better, the PPP or the IELD?
Sure. Great question. Both of those, those are the two main packages outside of the stimulus checks that everyone's gonna get. So depending on your income threshold, stimulus checks, that's the first part of the package. And the second package is everything available to small business owners. There's a lot of confusion between the economic disaster loan and the Paycheck Protection Program. So there's two packages, the economic disaster loan and the Paycheck Protection Program. So let's talk about both of these, okay? So the economic disaster loan, that's through the SBA, all right? And that loan has been around for a long time. It's been around for a while. It's not something new. What's changed with the stimulus package is if you apply for the loan, there's going to be very little underwriting at the personal level, and you're essentially going to be able to get $10,000 in advance, essentially just for applying. You'll get a $10,000 advance grant with very, very, very little underwriting. Okay, if you need more money than that, then they're going to get into underwriting in terms of personal guarantees, collateral, etc. So with the economic disaster loan, it's essentially a $10,000 grant up front that you can get. A prepayment essentially is what it is. Very little underwriting. Basically, if you apply for it, you're going to get it for the most part. If you need more money than that, then it gets into a very complex underwriting process. Okay, so that's a $10,000 grant. As long as that money is used for payroll, office rent, utilities, and normal business expenses, that $10,000 will not be owed back. Okay, so that's the economic disaster loan. Very little underwriting up front, $10,000 advance. If you need more than that, we get into a complex underwriting situation. Yes, question.
Go ahead. No, I was going to say, what, okay, that's great, simple explanation. And how do folks get it?
Okay, so that's directly through the SBA. You're going to go to the SBA's website. There's an application on there. You're going to want to apply for it. What you're going to need up front, what you're going to need to know is you're going to need to know how much net income you have. Mm-hmm. So if you have, everyone here is a business owner, okay? Everyone in this room, you're a business owner. And if you're trying to get to that level of, $50,000 a year, $100,000 a year, $150,000 a year plus, you need to operate like a business owner. And one of the most important pieces of information is an income statement. How much money is coming in and how much money is going out. If you've neglected that, okay, which the majority of, in my experience, realtors do for whatever reason, if you neglected that, now is the time to really, you got to get that process going, okay? We have 4 people right now that we're working on rush projects, a whole year of accounting, various degrees of income, because they need to get this income statement for this loan. So they're going to go off of your income statements, all right? So you need to start putting that together, and then they're going to reconcile the loan based off of your 2019 tax return that you file.
Okay, so I was going to ask that question, and that is, and thanks for saying that, right? So this is another great pivot that realtors can do. I can answer, to a CPA, it's like, we're all business owners. Why in the heck don't we have an income statement? And the answer is, we're hustling. Even folks that have a big business often don't have it. So it's a great time right now, and we should. So I get that. So right now is a great time to do that. How complicated if that sounds a little daunting to me, okay, QuickBooks would be great, or a program like that. But let's say I don't have that. I'm going to learn it next week, but I don't have it right now. Excel spreadsheet would be great. Okay, you know what? Hey, I'm 54. You know, I don't really use them. Excel spreadsheet. Can I go into a Word document and just go, yeah, here's, you know, I don't have that many lines of income. You know, I've got sale of real estate. I could have a huge business, only have one source of income, sale of real estate. And then am I doing the last 12 months? Am I doing year to date? How do I show, let's say I was making big money until 2 weeks ago, right?
Mhm.
Hey, you know what? A lot of folks had a great beginning of the year. Not a
Sure.
great beginning of the year. Now I've got 2 weeks fell off the cliff. So how do I deal with that? And I can use a Word document, and I've done it before. You know, now I use QuickBooks, right? But I started with a Word document when I was doing it. And it's just like, hey, here are my 3 or 4 sources of income. And then here are my, you know, 14 expenses or less, right? Maybe you go household expenses, you combine them all. I want to, we don't have to belabor this because people are already asking about the next loan, which I appreciate. But I also want to make sure that we have a step-by-step. So, and I see AJ put the, in the chat box, the link to apply for this loan. Okay. So I want to make this call one-stop shop, you know. Here's the link. Geez, I don't have, if I have QuickBooks or Excel spreadsheet, I already know how to do this, but if not, let's just do a Word document. So tell us, what's the time frame? What does it need to look like for us to get the yes?
Yeah, so this economic disaster loan, this $10,000, the time frame is very, very quick. What they're saying, what they publicize, I haven't seen it happen yet, is once you get approved, the pre-approval $10,000 should hit your bank account within 3 days.
Mm-hmm.
So very, very quick turnaround. I haven't seen any of our clients get it within 3 days, but it's supposed to be very, very quick in terms of the turnaround. So, you know, it doesn't need to be this big formal accounting. There just needs to be some sort of tracking. They have to go off of something. And if you have, ideally, they're going to go off of your 2019 tax return. But not everyone has filed that because the due date to file that is now July 15th. So some sort of income, you can get your income, you know that number off of your 1099 that you receive, and then some sort of expense chart, some sort of expense. Where did the money go? You know, your car, your transaction coordinator, your business coach, your mileage, all those expenses. Just put something together that they can use. So that way they can see how much money you're making. What they're trying to figure out is what is your net income. That's what they're trying to find out for the economic disaster loan.
And
Okay?
Louie, does it matter if you're an LLC, an S corp, or how?
Does not matter entity, regardless of entity. If you have an entity or not, you will apply. You will be able to apply in a streamlined approval process for the economic disaster loan. Okay, so that's the first loan, $10,000 pre-approval.
Mm-hmm.
And if you need more, yes, go ahead.
Questions coming in. Do they use a tax year, 2019, 2018? What if you owe taxes? What happens then? Both of those.
Yeah, this is a grant, so that it's not going against any type of tax liability. All of these aspects of the stimulus checks and all of these grants, they're not taking into account past year liabilities. The only thing that is going to potentially impact you with all of this stimulus packaging is if you're behind on your child support. The money will be intercepted.
Got it.
Outside of that, past tax filings, et cetera, past tax liabilities, not such a big deal.
So Louie, what if you're a new agent and you've never had income from real estate? What do you do?
Great question. So if you're a new business owner, they're going to look at, you need to be in business as of February 15th. 2020. February 15th, 2020 is when you need to have been in business by. If you haven't made any money, I haven't seen any language because they're going off of net income, essentially. They're going off of your net income. So if your net income is 0, I don't see what you would apply for. I don't see what you would qualify for. But there is, if you're in a situation where you just have no business, then you probably will default to unemployment.
But what if I had a real estate business? You know, I'm a newer agent. Sometimes it takes a while to get a deal done. So maybe I'm in business 6-7 months. You know, I'm paying my office fees. I've got my computer program. You know, I've just been tapping into savings because I switched from one career to another. Can I just say, hey, yeah, I'm a business. I've been in business for, 9 months and I've got zero income and, 70 G's in expenses.
Yeah, I don't see anything that's going to help that particular person out because they're going off of businesses. They're going off of businesses that have income. That's what they're going off of. I haven't seen anything that revolves around businesses that are operating at losses. I would still apply though. I would still apply. Everyone that is on this call, you need to get on the SBA website, okay? And you should apply. At the very least, they're going to tell you no. But if this $10,000 approval is streamlined.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. See, that's. I'm glad, Louie. I'm glad you said that because, it doesn't hurt to apply. Okay. And one of the things, and I got to tell you, it's a little frustrating for me too. But one of the things is, I talk to a lot of people, and I know people that already have gotten approval for some of these loans.
Sure.
And I'm still, we submitted, but we haven't heard anything yet. And, that's the position I'm in. So I'm like, geez, I wish I would have, done it earlier, but now's the time still. And I would get on and I mean, the point of this call is to get us all into action and to do the very best we can. I'm seeing a lot of phenomenal questions here.
Yeah, I don't think we're going to be able to. We have 500 people on, and probably we're going to have over 1,000 questions. So
yeah, that's right.
We're trying to.
Let's transition into the bigger loan, the PPP loan, the Paycheck Protection Program. We just talked about the economic disaster loan. Yeah, quick question.
Really quick on that transition because I don't know if it applies here. If somebody doesn't have anybody on payroll and they can't apply, then for that, is that where they would go to their PPP? Somebody's asking that.
Yeah, so what's kind of confusing but also great is essentially the economic disaster loan. That's one package, basically $10,000 for basically anyone that applies, right? So we want to apply and see what happens. That would be my advice to everyone here. Mm-hmm. Apply for that SBA disaster loan and see what happens, okay? Then there's the PPP loan, the Paycheck Protection Program loan, okay? And this is a little bit more of a complex process in terms of the application, but you would qualify for one of the other. You're going to qualify for either 2.5, which is 250%. 250% if you're a solo agent, solopreneur, regardless of industry, solopreneur, you're the only worker, you do it all. Mm-hmm. They're going to go off of your 2019 last year net income. Okay, so if I had net income after all of my expenses for 2019 of $50,000, okay, in Southern California, the statistic of Southern California realtors, if I go from Ventura County all the way south to San Diego County, all the way inland to Riverside County, the average realtor in Southern California has $50,000 of income they show on a tax return, okay? So if I take the average income from a realtor, $50,000 a year, 250% of that is a loan somewhere around $13,000. Okay, so a bigger loan compared to the $10,000 that I would be getting with this economic disaster loan. This is the Paycheck Protection Program loan. So with this loan, as long as I use the money I get from this loan, if I'm a solopreneur, solo agent, if I take that money and for the next 8 weeks through June 30th, if I take that money and I'm using it for payroll and office rent and office utilities, if I take that money and I use it for payroll, whether I'm paying myself or I'm paying, maybe I have an assistant or a team, as long as I'm using that money for payroll and office rent, that money is forgiven. So the economic disaster loan is only $10,000. The Paycheck Protection Program can be a potentially much higher number. Now, if you have payroll, if you have employees, they're going to go off of your 2019 payroll tax filings. That's what they're going to go off of, the 250,000, the 250%. So there's two loans. Economic disaster loan, $10,000. Apply for it. See if you get approved. Okay, it's essentially a grant. That $10,000, as long as I use it for payroll and business-related expenses. And then I have the Paycheck Protection Program, which is potentially a much higher loan. And that money, as long as I use that money for the next 8 weeks, specifically for business expenses related to payroll and rent, that money will be forgiven. On the Paycheck Protection Program, there is also a streamlined process of applying for the loan. The government is serving as the collateral. So there's no personal guarantee and there is no collateral. All right, the government is the collateral. So if you're someone with credit issues, etc., that's not going to be so much of an issue for you. The government's serving as essentially the credit. So two loans. Economic disaster loan, maximum, very likely for the most of the people here, $10,000. Paycheck Protection Program, potentially more money. Okay, and both of these packages are forgiven.
And can you get both? People are asking if we can.
You could get both. So let's say I apply for the economic disaster loan, I get pre-approved for the $10,000 and I get that funded. Make sense? Then I go and apply for the Paycheck Protection Program. So the Paycheck Protection Program is through your local bank, okay? It's through your local bank. Your local bank will have all the answers. What happens if I don't use the money for this? What happens if I use the money for that? Your local bank, every single bank, there's 1,800 providers for this Paycheck Protection Program. Every single bank has different sets of rules as far as what the money could be used for, application process, etc. The Paycheck Protection Program is through the banks. So now's the time, if you don't have a local banker that you have a relationship with, I would establish that. Okay.
Now, again, because we're getting a lot of questions, and I'll ask one of them that seems to be coming up again and again, and that is, what if we're a 1099, or what if we have a small company? So I have a team, and I've got 2 or 3 people working for me, but they're all 1099. How does that work?
Great question. Great question. So let me just touch on one other aspect. I'm seeing people making comments that Wells Fargo's out of money. Okay. From what it looks like, they are going to add additional funds to this grant. I don't think we're going to really get back to normal in terms of how it was up until this virus. I don't see it getting back to normal until probably next year, realistically. January of next year is probably when we're going to get realistically back to normal.
When you say back to normal, can you define that for people so people don't freak out, just so they understand what you mean?
Going to a restaurant, not worrying if someone sneezes on me, letting people come into my home that I don't know if I have a listing, or going into someone else's home, just your normal course of action. I don't see that happening until January. That's just my personal opinion, okay? The government is going to continue to put money into this small business grant relief package. This is just the first of what's very likely going to be many, because if you take away small business owners in our economy would go under quickly. So the government's going to do whatever they can to continue to fund this. So I understand that Wells Fargo's having issues. Bank of America had issues when it first came out. Some credit unions are still figuring out if they want to do it or not. This will be the first of many. So if we don't get the first turnaround, there's very likely going to be additional money. Now, to answer your question, if you have people on your team or on your staff that you pay as independent contractors, okay? You're not paying them formally through payroll. Your independent contractors that you're paying, they need to go out and apply for things for themselves. They are not taking into account independent contractors in this payroll calculation. That was a last minute update on April 2nd around midnight. They updated that.
All right. Well, with that, people are asking, can we use our P&L? Is that the same as an income statement?
Yeah. So for the PPP loan, we're going back to qualifying. Yes. if you're a solopreneur, solo agent, you're going to want to put together a P&L. That's the first thing they're going to go off of, okay? And it's all going to be reconciled based on your 2019 tax filing, whenever that
And
happens.
if you didn't file 2019, you're saying when you file, that's
when you file. Because the deadline to file 2019 is right now is July. So we all have plenty of time to do that.
All right, and then will the SBA loan affect any type of credit for people?
Okay, great question. That's something that the bank or the SBA, you're going to want to ask them. I applied for it for my business. Because the government is the one essentially serving as the collateral, they still asked for my social security number. So I wouldn't be surprised if they ran a credit check. I would ask the bank, is this going to impact my credit? They're not going to use your credit essentially to qualify for it because the government is serving as collateral, but they still are going to ask you for your social security number. They're probably going to run a soft credit check.
And I have a big overarching question, which is that a lot of people, including me on the call, we're having a lot of trouble getting in touch with the bank at all. So, and I'll run a couple of scenarios by you because I know people are all facing these sorts of things. We moved a lot of our banking to a new bank because they do great online service. They, lots of reasons that made sense before this. And now that particular bank is saying, hey, you know what? We are not prepared to do PPP at all, period. I'm like, oh, geez. Okay. So then the next thing we did was we ran around to like Chase and many of these other banks, and they said, well, we're only doing it for our existing customers. So that put us in and then I ran around and tried to find, hey, what are the names of a couple of banks that are taking new customers for this? So I want everybody to hear on the call that, if you're scrambling, you're not the only people who are scrambling. And the answer to a lot of these questions, I'll just go a little broader brush. If you have a CPA of your own and you're in dialogue with your own CPA, I would listen to your own CPA, okay? Because they're paid by you. They're looking at your particular information. So that's the first step. And then the next step is there's a lot of frequently asked questions. They're coming, because I went on and I looked at some of the FAQs on these programs, and a lot of the questions that are being asked here are answered there. That's okay. We're trying to make this super easy for everybody. And then the other thing is, if I'm applying for either of these loans and my question's not answered here, I don't have a CPA, and the question that I have is not on the frequently asked questions. My advice at that point, and that's why I'm giving it now with you on the phone here, is that my advice is do your best and submit it because the people on the other end of this are just human beings. And two things on that. And one is make it as easy for them to say yes as you possibly can. Don't create more complications. Submit it easy, clean, as just like an offer, right? Submit that offer easy, clean, so that the yes is easy. Because they're just people, working probably from home with a stack of stuff in front of them. They got to get through as many as they can. And then the second part is make it as easy as you can. The second part is if you don't know the answer, do your best and hit send. That's my advice on that. But I want to know if you agree with that, number one, and then number two, what about all the people that are in the mess that I'm in terms of, oh, I'm with Wells, but they're not taking applications now. Oh, I put my application in, but I haven't heard a word. Or, oh, my banker won't answer my call. Or, there's a lot of the 500 people on this call. There's a lot of people in that boat, some form of that boat.
Well, you got to kind of look at it from the bank's perspective. The banks are probably a little apprehensive to release all this money when this just got passed. This literally, April 3rd, last Friday, is when all of the banks were supposed to start funding the loans, okay? And they were still releasing guidance up until April 3rd at midnight. Mm-hmm.
there's a press release that that Wells Fargo CEO called the Treasury Friday morning because he was still unclear on however they were going to fund it. And Wells Fargo wasn't even funding on April 3rd when Chase and Bank of America were. So this is all brand new stuff. And this reminds me a lot of those of us who went to college, just of how rushed this was. This reminds me of the class project that's 50% of your grade that is due on Friday, and we didn't start doing it until Thursday night at midnight. This is what this whole situation reminds me of. So it's all brand new, and everyone's scrambling and doing the best they can to get the rules and everything applied to them. Just understand, they're gonna fund this even more. They're gonna fund this even more. More money's gonna get poured into this. Eventually, it's all gonna get very streamlined. But for now, the biggest thing is trying to get some sort of application for these through. Okay, try whatever you can do to get an application in. That's what you should do right now.
And you know, like for example, I see a question. You know, these are all great questions. I wish we had time to answer every single one of them. You know, somebody saying, "Hey, can I apply for for unemployment and PPP?" And here's the thing, okay? Louie's here to answer that. I don't know the answer to that. My answer before knowing the answer is go for it, right?
Sure.
So, you know, just to give people guidance, because we're not going to get to every single question.
Yeah, so you can't do both of those. So if you went out and applied for unemployment right now, and then you applied for the PPP loan, unemployment's probably going to go through within a week right now with how quickly unemployment's being funded. So if you applied for unemployment, and unemployment has been expanded to include contractors. So if you applied for unemployment and you got it, and then withdrew your unemployment once you got the PP loan funded, that's a great strategy right there. That's a great strategy.
Let's do
You
both.
just can't do both of those. You can't double dip. You can't be pulling from unemployment and also get PPP loan money at the same time. I saw someone ask, why don't I just go out and apply for every bank that I can and see which one approves me first? That's genius. That's a great idea. If you have the time to do it, go ahead and apply to every and any single bank.
Yeah.
It's like if I'm a buyer of a home, I'm not going to put all my baskets into one property. I'm probably going to have 2 or 3 backup properties in case the first property doesn't go through. So
that's a good point. Look, everybody's still trying to figure out what the hell is going on. So before they do, jump and do this, because as things change, they may deny you or they may have different guidelines. So if you can do this, what are we in today? Wednesday, Tuesday? I don't even know what day it is.
Yeah, right.
It's Tuesday?
Yeah.
All right. It's Tuesday. Just do this before Thursday, please.
yeah, I'm
Just
seeing
jump
some people
on.
here too that have applied and they've gotten their phone calls or they've gotten the application process going. They just haven't been funded yet. You know, I understand. Another topic outside of these 2 loans, there's the PPP loan and there's the economic disaster loan. Okay. Another aspect is, what if I have retirement? Okay. What if I have retirement and I want to use some of that cash flow that I have in retirement to get me through this current situation? Okay. They have released some guidance for that. So if you take out money for this COVID-19 essentially disaster, the virus that's occurring, typically when you take out retirement funds, when you take out retirement funds before retirement age, you get hit with a 10% early withdrawal penalty, 10%. So if I took out $50,000, $5,000 of it is just a penalty right off the bat. $5,000 is a penalty. They're waiving that 10% penalty if you're trying to take out any retirement money to keep you afloat, okay? And when you take out that money, it's taxable income, okay? So if I take out $50,000 from my retirement, I would get hit with two clubs. The first club is the 10% withdrawal penalty, and the second club they're going to hit me with is that it's taxable income. With this situation, they're waiving the 10% penalty, and you can spread out your retirement contribution over 3 years. So, for example, let's say I typically make $50,000 a year, okay? And in retirement, I want to take out $50,000. So if you would have done that, you would have showed $100,000 of income on your 2020 tax return. Okay, so $100,000, $50,000 of it from retirement, 50,000 of it from regular day job income. That $100,000 would skyrocket you into a higher tax bracket. Instead, you can spread out that $50,000 early withdrawal that you took over 3 years. You can show first year some sort of amount, second year some sort of amount, third year some sort of amount. So 50,000 divided by 3 would be. So first year you can show $16,000 of it, second year 16,000, and then the third year 16,000, and that will mitigate your tax liability significantly. So that is your options if you have a retirement account. You can pull that out, no penalty, and then you can spread that retirement distribution that you took early over 3 years.
Perfect.
Okay.
Just looking at some questions, guys. This is being recorded, and I just put the link up again on the chat box. So if you do want to watch this again, we'll have it ready in 2 days on Paul's YouTube channel. So just please subscribe. All of these that we're doing weekly, the Tuesday ones are being recorded and uploaded to Paul's channel. So
And
just subscribe.
also, I'm going to pick up the questions in the chat box that we didn't get answers to, and I'm going to try and get some answers to the questions, including creating a little bit of a flow chart for you guys in terms of what to do when, and you can do some of this simultaneously. I did see a question that said, are we creating tax liability if we just try everything? And the answer is yes, possibly, right? And that is, I would go ahead and try everything. You're not going to get tax liability. If you apply for a PPP and your banker doesn't answer the phone, that's not going to create tax liability. So
Sure.
it's going to be easier than you think in terms of figuring this out later on. They're working on how to figure it out now. I would spend the energy right now trying to get as much relief as you possibly can.
I wouldn't spend time trying to figure this out. I would spend my time applying, because in terms of figuring it out, if the CEO of Wells Fargo had to call in last Friday directly to Congress because he hasn't figured it out, it means that it's just not figured out to begin with. So what's figured out is that they're trying to get money into small business owners' pockets. That's the part that's been figured out. To do that, you have to apply. That's the biggest thing that we need to figure out, what you need to do, how to apply. That's what I would figure. That's what I would really focus my time on. Happy to answer some of these individual questions, just kind of chop them one by one if you guys want. There's some good questions here, actually.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, man. See if you can grab them. I'm trying to answer them in the chat. Let me see if we've got quite a few questions.
Yeah.
I'll start from the bottom.
One thing that people keep asking, and we may have answered it, but it's just that because I know in our industry it's so important, and that is, again, what if I'm a 1099? What if I'm an employee with a 1099, or what if all of my employees are 1099? So I know we asked that, but we're getting that question over and over again. It really is a big one.
So if you're labor force, let's say you have a team, okay? I think that's one of the best, probably the best thing that Keller Williams preaches is this whole concept of creating teams. So let's say you have a team and you have everyone below you are, agents, and they're all 1099 contractors. So those 1099 expenses that you're paying for your contractors, those are not included in your payroll cost calculation. They are not. The only thing that's included in your payroll cost calculation is formal salary paid, W-2 paid employees. So if you have a team and you have one person that's an assistant that's on salary, and then the rest of your team are all agents, then they're all contractors, the only thing that's going to get taken into account is how much money you get paid. Either you get paid through your entity or you have a net income at the end of the year, plus the employees that you're paying. So that essentially that assistant. None of the independent contracting labor is part of the calculation. All of the independent contractors, they all need for their own unemployment or PPP loan or or economic disaster loan, it's essentially they need to take care of themselves.
And I think the advice still remains, because we are getting a bunch of the same questions, is just do your best to apply for as much stuff as you can. For example, we got a question. Look, I don't have my income and expense statement ready to go right now. Should I apply for the grant right now, or wait until I get my act together in terms of income and expense? And I'm going to take a stab at that, Louie, and you correct me, because my advice has been the same to so many people, and that is, make it easy for them and, apply as fast as you can. So if I were in that situation where, geez, for me to get my I&E, my income and expense thing done, the right way, geez, that's going to take me 2 weeks. So do I send it in, without it, or do I wait the 2 weeks? And my answer is neither. Okay. My answer is send it in as soon as you can. Don't spend the 2 weeks on your income and expense statement. Do a simplified one and send it in, so that the person on the other end of the thing goes, oh, well, here's an application. Oh, but they don't have an income and expense statement. I'm going to put that on the bottom of the list. They're not going to likely look at it and go, geez, this isn't perfect. So
Right.
I'm not going to view this thing. So get it in as complete as you can immediately, and fuss with it later.
Right. Just to make sure people know that for both the economic disaster loan and the PPP loan, a lot of people saying I haven't filed my 2019 tax return. Completely understand. I haven't even filed my 2019 tax return. Okay. And I'm an accountant. It takes a lot of time to put that whole thing together. We have until July 15th to file your 2019 tax return. The only thing that they need for both of those loan approvals is some sort of P&L. So if you can, a P&L is income from my 1099 miscellaneous, $60,000, and expenses could be, car, $10,000. That's a P&L.
Yeah. It sounds fancy if you don't have one, and you can have a fancy one, but you can just say, hey, here's my one source of income, and here are my expenses. I've got household expenses all lumped together. I've got my rent or mortgage payment, and I've got, cost of doing business. You can make it simple. Spend 2 hours doing it, and after you spend 2 hours doing it, go, okay, well, this is what it is, and send it in. I'd make sure the numbers added up, but aside from that, I don't think they're not looking for perfect. And Louie, I think your point, and I'll certainly look into it and use it often, is, CEO of Wells Fargo doesn't have this thing figured out exactly. I don't think they're going to expect you to.
Yeah. Specific questions here, specific questions. Do I have the ability? I'll leave my email address, and I'll try my best to get back to people if you have specific questions. I can't promise I'll get back to everyone, just because the amount of clients we have, and right now our biggest problem is we're understaffed. But specific questions, call up your accountant. If you have an accountant right now, is probably a good time too. Maybe you're starting to make money and you haven't gone through the process of finding an accountant. Find a good local accountant that has experience and knows what they're doing. Seek the advice. Ask for a free consultation. Any one of us accountants for a potential new client, we're always happy to give 30 minutes of our time for a potential new client relationship.
And in addition to Louie, and we'll have Louie's information up for sure, I'll provide a short list of accountants that I have personal experience with as well, so that you can and also work with realtors. So we'll try and get you a list, including Louie, for sure, of 5. I can definitely promise 3 good accountants who have a lot of familiarity with realtors.
Yeah, and then the one quick thing on the Paycheck Protection Program loan is both of these loans. I see a question here on the terms. Both the economic disaster loan and the Paycheck Protection Program loan, the highest interest rate that I've seen on these is 3.5%. So these are very, very, very low interest rate loan options if you are looking for these avenues. So 3.5%, that's essentially inflation. So the government's charging just enough to keep up with inflation. They're not really profiting off this.
So
Yeah,
there's somebody in the audience, guys. Paul, you may know her. Her name is Michelle Colbert or
Yeah.
Colbert.
Oh yeah.
She's saying, Paul, I'm happy to teach a class on how to do a quick P&L if that would be of help. And I think that might.
I probably would for this for your demographic, just a quick and easy P&L. That'd probably be a great usage of time.
And I would recommend, because I'm thinking of people, the most people that we can help the easiest way. I would recommend, believe it or not, doing a P&L, probably the worst, the least scientific way. I would do a Word document, and I would just go bullet point, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, here are my sources of income, 1 through 10, here are my sources of expenses. Now I do have an online resource too for a very easy household and small business income P&L as well. But if you're stuck in a bind, I used to do them myself 15 years ago, and I got fairly detailed, and
Sure.
I used a Microsoft Word, so it didn't even add up. It didn't even add for me. Anybody with, any technical skill would use a Excel spreadsheet, but guess what? It works just fine. I used my Word doc, and I got my calculator out, and I added it all up, and you get the same info without any automation. So yeah, that's work on creating a class for people that want to know how to do a P&L. It should be very simple, very easy. Let's do it sooner rather than later. But my advice to you is just do it on your own. Michelle, thanks for that offer. We'll take you up on it, and do it on your own, so that you get this thing in soon.
Yeah, I just shot her a private message to text me so that we can get her on, Paul.
Yeah, because that's essentially the only thing the banks are needing right now is just that P&L. Typically when you're applying for loans, they also need that tax return file, but they don't really even need the tax return.
Yeah, again, think about who is processing these applications. You've got people that are inundated, and it's just, I'm telling you, like submitting a multiple offer. Just make yours clean and complete, to the point, do your best. Hey, well, I got to get the offer perfect, so I'm going to submit the offer 2 weeks from now. Not a good idea. Get it as clean and complete as you can right now. And, Tristan gave a good date, said, hey, create a date for yourself of Thursday, get these things in by Thursday. That being said, you could get them in today. Today's better than Thursday, but I like Tristan's idea of Thursday as a deadline. Don't shoot for Friday.
Yeah, don't wait, guys. This is it's crazy if you wait. I would be doing that's why we want to get Michelle on and just do a quick P&L. Maybe if Michelle or somebody could run a quick video on doing, AJ, if you're watching this, or Blake, or anybody Paul.
Yeah.
If we could.
Did you guys want to take maybe 5 minutes, just go over the stimuluses, or do you feel like that's enough information that?
No,
because there's some questions in here about the stimulus.
Yeah, we've got 10 minutes. Go over it, please.
Okay, so the other aspect here, and as business owners, we have all these grants and loans available to us. Everyone, regardless of business owner or employee, there's stimulus checks coming out. So the way the stimulus checks are working is if you're single and you make $75,000 and below, $75,000 of adjusted gross income. So if I'm a realtor and let's say my 1099 gross commission is 125, but after I account for my expenses, I have $50,000 of expenses, my adjusted gross income would be down to that 75. Not total income, adjusted gross income, okay? So adjusted gross income, if it's $75,000 or less if I'm single, or $150,000 or less if I'm married filing jointly, it's $1,200 per spouse. So if I'm single, it's a $1,200 check, less than $75,000. If I'm married filing jointly, that's less than $150,000. I would get two $1,200 checks, one for me, one for my spouse. Okay, this is non-taxable income, regardless of if you have a past liability. The only thing that what they're going off of is your 2019 tax return. Now, it looks like the majority of us here have not filed your 2019 tax return. If you haven't filed your 2019 tax return, no problem, no problem. They're going to go off of your 2018 tax return, okay? 2018 tax return. And then as far as dependents here, I have a good question here. If you have any dependents under 17, if you have any dependents under the age of 17, you get an additional $500 per dependent. So a family of 4 making less than $150,000 of adjusted gross income, you would get a $1,200 check for spouse number 1, $1,200 check for spouse number 2, and then 2 $500 checks for both dependents. So a family of 4 would see a $3,400 stimulus check. Okay, so if you haven't filed your 2019 tax return, they're going to go off of your 2018 tax return. If you haven't filed your 2018 tax return, you're behind. You know, stuff, life happens. You know, we see people coming through our office all the time with just life happens and they get behind on the tax filings. I would expedite that process and getting caught up, okay? The IRS is going to be releasing a special mailing address for people in situations where they're behind on their tax filings. And that should be released by Friday is what they're saying. Okay, so how am I going to get this money is the next question. If you typically are someone who gets refunds, they're going to go off of the bank account information you have on file on your tax return. Typically tax refunds get direct deposited. So if you're someone that gets refunds and it's always direct deposited, the IRS already has your information and they're going to direct deposit the stimulus check into your bank account. If you're someone who owes every year, like for me, I owe every year because I'm a business owner and I don't do quarterly estimated tax payments because I don't believe in that. So I owe every year. The IRS is going to release a portal. Okay, there's going to be a portal where you can go on and you would register your name, your up-to-date address, and your up-to-date checking account information. So a portal will be released and it hasn't been released yet. In terms of when they're going to get this money out, they're going to go, this is how they have planned out how they're going to pay out the stimulus. They're going to go with low income earners first, all the way up to upper middle class earners. So starting on April 13th, they're going to start administering checks for those who make $10,000 per year or less. Then the following week, they're going to go to the $20,000 per, or they're going to go up every week $10,000. So they're going to start with people who make $10,000 per year or less, all the way up the threshold up to $150,000 per year. So if you're someone who's capping out at the $150,000, your stimulus check is going to be a little bit of time before you see it. But if you're within the lower middle class family household incomes, you would see it probably around May, June.
These are good questions. And some of them are, you know, I got a question of, you know, how do I apply for unemployment? And I just right this second Googled, how do I apply for unemployment? And up pops in California. I copied, pasted, put it in the chat box. It's that simple in terms of a lot of these questions. Yeah. So, you know, I don't think we want to get too in the weeds on it also. But you know, I appreciate all of your time, Louie, today, because I know you've got a long list of clients and phone calls to make as well. And do you want to just give us you know, one last overview as we go out? And my overarching message on this is, don't get it perfect. Get into action right now.
Yeah, don't get it perfect.
You know, go to your CPA. But even before I went to, if I say, hey, you know, I talk to my CPA once a year. I left a few messages for him or her. Go online, Google this stuff. We put a bunch of resources in the chat box. You know, how to get SBA help, and you know, do the best you can. Get it in.
Yeah, I'm going to chat right now. Go ahead and put this is my direct email address, you guys. So I actually look at this every day. This isn't someone on staff. I'll type it in right now.
Go ahead. You're going to get a ton of emails, so good.
Yeah. So I can't, that's my direct email, either me or I can forward it to someone on staff. And then this is our office cell phone. You can call or text this number. My assistant, Erin, she's on the phone all day long from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. I have our office cell phone. You can call or text it, or our office email. What I can do for everyone on the call is we can allocate a 15-minute complimentary consultation. That's what we can commit to everyone here is a 15-minute complimentary consultation. If this turns out to be, for someone who has employees, all right, someone who has employees, you have a team and I have employees, there's some really good strategy that can be utilized with everything that's available here between the small business disaster loan, the Paycheck Protection Program, and also some payroll tax credits that you would qualify for. Some really good strategies that we can potentially put together for a complex situation like that. But understand that for the majority of business owners, solopreneurs, apply. Like Paul said. Paul, I couldn't have summed it up better. Apply. And it doesn't have to be perfect. As long as you can get that to 75% accurate, that's probably going to be good enough in this situation.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That's the key, guys. All right. A lot of questions. The most important one, is this recorded? Yes, it's recorded. We're going to upload it to Paul's YouTube page, which I've put up the link there multiple times. So just scroll through it, find it, and just subscribe here. I'll put it one more time at the bottom here so everybody can have it.
We're doing that for lack of a better, there's so many different places that you can go to get resources. And we just threw up a YouTube page so that we could put the Tuesday calls on them. We're having a call every Tuesday at 10 a.m. Tristan and I will host it. We're having great resources like Louie on every single week. And then Thursday, Tristan and I, together with our regional tech trainer, Blake, Thursday, 10 a.m., we're doing command for agents in these times. So what can help you as an agent? What can the KW technology do to help you right now? We're doing those Thursdays, 10 a.m. and likewise recording them.
We switched it to 9 a.m.
Oh, okay. All right.
Because the National Tech Conference is for at that time.
Right.
So we had to 9 a.m. Pacific now.
Okay. Yeah. So Thursdays, 9 a.m. Thanks. And then we'll post those on Tristan's YouTube. And Tristan, for those of you who don't know, is the CEO of Lab Coat Realtors, which is the most active Facebook group for realtors across the nation. Tristan's a national speaker and leader of that group. And if you go, I think, Tristan, it's a closed group. I think if you go there and request admission to it, he'll admit everybody on this call for sure. And there's so many great resources. That's a great one. Pivot, KW's Pivot Facebook page. All you have to do is go on Facebook and hit Pivot. That's another great national resource. I've had some questions from offices in the field. How does all this fit together in terms of Keller Williams? And one of the things that we wanted to do was, your office is your number one resource, but we want to make sure that you're hearing from, you've got a portal and you've got a direct line to KWRI and Gary Keller and Jay Papasan and the top leaders. And one great avenue for that is the Pivot Facebook page. And then we want to make sure that the region is in touch with you. And that's what we're doing on Tuesdays and Thursdays. For our leadership, we've always been in touch with our leadership, but we want to make sure we have a direct avenue to get great new information via the internet during these times. So that's why Tristan and I got together for Tuesday and Thursday, and why we threw up this YouTube channel, because I'm just going to put all my good resources in one place on YouTube so as many people can get to them as they want.
Awesome. Louie?
Yeah, we'll be in touch, guys. Paul, Anthony, maybe if there's any significant updates over the next coming weeks. Like I said, this isn't going to be the last stimulus package. It's going to be one of many. I'll make a prediction right now and say that total debt will double over this, just in terms of the bailouts of small business. So happy to jump on a future call in the future, guys.
Yeah, thank you very much. And thanks for these great questions. Really appreciate it. And so glad as a community we get together and have, we'll figure out the full tally later, but I know we had more than 500 last time. I'm sure we'll have well more than that now. So
Yeah, we had about 550 people on today. So
yeah. So it's a good resource, and thanks for the many great questions. I'll have AJ collect them. We'll do the best we can in terms of providing this resource. So Louie, thank you so much for joining us and our three regions, Central and Southern California, Los Angeles, Westside Los Angeles, and LA coastal regions, together with Tristan, the CEO of Lab Coat Realtors, and he's acting as sort of a crisis communication and technology coordinator for us, which we greatly appreciate. So we'll talk to you all at 9 a.m. on Thursday with our technology update.
thanks, everybody.
Okay, stay well, everybody.